Hello, and welcome back to the Tyler Moore East, where today I was going to show you building a scrapyard, but I scrapped that because something happened. A wonderful hero of mine passed away the other day, and she's someone who should be a hero of yours too. The Venerable Judy Heumann, a disability rights activist, passed away at the age of 75 on March the 4th, after nearly 60 years of being an activist and advocate for people with physical and intellectual disabilities. Because of Judy and her mother Ilsa, who helped her fight, we now have things like curb cuts on corners so that you can cross the street with a mobility device. We now have electronic buttons on doors of public buildings so that you can push that button and get inside, even if it's just because you have groceries in your hand. It's because of Judy that you have that option now. And because of Judy, think about all of the people in your life you've known or know who have had a mobility issue, whether that be your grandparents, your elderly neighbors, a person in a wheelchair, a friend with cerebral palsy. You wouldn't know them without Judy, or if you knew them before their disability, you wouldn't see much of them anymore without the help of Judy, because they would likely be mostly confined to their home, which was just an absolute travesty and just human rights abuse, any way you slice it. But because of Judy and her mom, she was able to attend school in her wheelchair and no longer be considered a fire hazard, which allowed her to go to university and earn a teaching degree, which the New York Public School Board refused to grant her a teaching license because they deemed her a fire hazard. As a teacher, they said she wouldn't be able to evacuate the classroom in time if there was a fire. But she fought and won that too, and she was able to do a lot of things that a lot of people in her age were not able to do if they had mobility issues. So we should all be deeply appreciative of the work that she and her allies and the people she worked with did. Eventually working in the White House and helping to expand accessibility rights all across the world so that people everywhere can live fulfilling, respectable lives as productive, contributing members of society. So thank you for joining me on this very special episode of the Tyler Moore East. I'm going to show you the building of the Accessibility and Equity Planning Division of the county, as well as a few procedural objects tricks. Sort of a beginner's tutorial. We're going to start here in the very center of Martha's Point, the county capital of the Tyler Moore East, and a great place within the city to highlight such an important division of the government. Now, this building I've selected is much too small for the use that I want it. I want it to be grandiose. I want it to loom over the city so you can see it from everywhere and never forget how vital accessibility and equity are in our designed and built environment. So I'm going to use PO. I use Move It first to select the building, and I hit Shift P, which converts it to PO. And then when I open PO, I go into the More button and hit Distort. And this is a very easy way for me to change the shape and size of the building without having to go through the hundreds or dozens of little pinpoint pieces in the customization option. This allows me to create a much different shape or size building very simply. It really could be done by a young child. It's really just a matter of using your non-dominant mouse button to click and drag and select those little node buttons so that when they turn red, you know they're selected, and you can pull it across whichever way you want to go. So it's very simple to just expand the building, all of the details included without having to worry about leaving little bits and pieces behind or breaking the model and having to start over again. It also helps me keep it proportioned because I'm expanding it one side at a time, so I can really see how it's going. If I had to just sort of, arbitrarily grow it or shrink it, it would end up being distorted. But with this ironically, the option called distort keeps it intact in one moving piece. So that is really a wonderful tool. It's one I've only recently discovered in my Procedural Objects lookout. I believe it was a video by Gaseous Stranger where I found this one. Really helpful videos out there by a lot of great creators. This is just one little tip that you can do. Now here's another great tool I use very frequently, is the prop line tool. That is really used for all kinds of detailing work. Here I'm using it to put down some wonderful playful decals in front of this new division. That way, whenever anybody walks by, they are going to be able to see for themselves how important this area is. It will draw their attention. If the dome above does not catch your vision, this this paver certainly will, because it is very colorful and playful and fun. You just cannot ignore it, no matter how hard you try. So all you have to do is select the line tool on the edge and click and drag it. It creates a line. You then will need to, before you click, hit Control and click, and that will give you the option of lining up the pieces to be exactly right up against one another. You can space them out if you want, you can crowd them together, you can overlap them, but with the Control click in Prop Line Tool, you are able to really have a lot of control over where these pieces are going to be without having to individually place every single little square that you see. It is a much easier option for me to go down and place a whole row here together. I could have made it even easier by selecting the row once I had 2 rows down, and then it's doubled to 4, and then select them all to double it up to 8. But with this project, I just wanted to really scrutinize every little detail. So I was a little bit more cautious and did it row by row here. Now is time for me to make this big, beautiful building accessible, because we have this landmark building that everybody will notice and remember, but it's pretty terrible when the accessibility department is not accessible. So we are going to convert the porch using procedural objects into a giant ramped porch with ramps on all 3 sides of it, so that there are no stairs on this building. It is only to be accessible for all. So I found this great wall piece to use for a ramp because it has grooves between each row of masonry, and those grooves are going to be great for collecting rainwater and funneling it off to the sides of the ramp rather than creating a massive water slide for a wheelchair to slide down. The grooves in it will function as a bit of a gripper to make it a safer space. So I needed to shrink the capstone on it. Trying a bit earlier to just delete it, I ended up blowing up the entire piece. So I went back and tried it again and decided to use the more difficult customization option, where again you just select each node using your non-dominant mouse button, and you slowly move each little pixel over until you get rid of that top cap. Then I moved into the general tools, where you have the rotation tool. Again, had some difficulties figuring out which line to use. And then also in the general tool, this very useful tool with the red, blue, and green bars with yellow caps on them. Now, it's a little bit frustrating to use that option. It is an easier, more upfront way to use it. It's not very technical, but it is frustrating because you can only drag the yellow cubes on the end of each bar if you want to move anything. So that involves a lot of camera work, rolling around the object to make sure that you have the yellow cube in your sight that you can click and drag on it, just as I'm doing here to alter the width of this ramp. Procedural objects can be daunting. Don't get me wrong. It took me a very long time to even try using it, and then it took me quite a while to become comfortable with using it. And I am a very quick learner with computer programs, and I have very little fear or anxiety over learning a new computer program, but procedural objects just seemed like it was a little bit more scary. I'm here to tell you right now, forget about it being scary. It's just new, and the newness might be scary to you. Chances are pretty slim that it's going to break your game. Chances are pretty slim that it's going to overload your game, unless you have a city that is even more complex than the Tyler Moore. Your computer, which might be like mine and might not be very great, will be able to handle it. It's something I encourage you to try to get into because you can really expand your abilities within this game. You open up almost limitless options for control over the design of your city and the buildings within it. You can alter text fields, you can make signs, you can alter colors of the building, you can alter pieces, you can add pieces in, you can take pieces off, you can really create anything. I feel like the freedom that we have with City Skylines to create a city with, diagonal curving roads and bridges that can go in any direction and over top of other bridges, that offered us a lot of freedom in the design of our buildings. I feel that PO offers us just as much freedom in making the buildings that make up the city. So it really is an important tool if you're like me and you're really into City Skylines to make something really lovely and detailed and specific to what you have in mind. You will be able to achieve what you have in mind once you've mastered some basic PO skills. Now, this building that I'm making is not very complicated. It's pretty basic. I'm really just POing the porch and the size of the building using the distort tool earlier. Apart from that, I'm not going to get too fancy on this because I really do love this model. This asset is fantastic. It is beautifully done. It's of a church in Spain, church or monument for heroes, which I thought was very appropriate for one of my greatest heroes. Now, Judy Heumann, a little bit more about her. She was born to Jewish German immigrants who came to America in the 1930s to escape the ravages of the Nazis, and the rest of their families were lost in the war. Judy was born in 1947 in Brooklyn, but she, I don't know if the proper term is acquired or caught polio. Polio infected her when she was just 18 months old. So she really did not know a life without being confined to a wheelchair. And she was so fierce that in a time when people with disabilities were basically shunned from society and hidden away in their homes by their families as sort of a pariah, and were treated in public by the most progressive people with, over the top pity and sympathy for something that really wasn't bad. But society saw it as bad because it was different, and boy, was society messed up then. Still is today, but it's a lot better now than it was in many ways, thanks to people like Judy. So, as I mentioned, she fought to be in school, and the school board at the time did not allow her to go to school because they thought she was a fire hazard in her wheelchair. School buildings were designed very differently back then. I'm imagining her school in Brooklyn was probably built in the early 20th century or late 19th, and probably did not have any, code for egress passages or width of doorways and whatnot. But that's not Judy's problem. That's the problem of the people who designed the building to exclude entire subsects of our society. Just wrong on the architect's part in every way. Though, granted, in the early 20th century, wheelchairs were a pretty new thing as well. But that being said, Judy's mom, Ilsa, fought for her to be included in the school as a student instead of receiving 2 hours a week of in-home instruction. That was what the city of New York thought was appropriate education for a child in a wheelchair in 1960. We're talking about only 63 years ago. That's not that long ago. Judy Heumann is only 9 years older than my own mother. We're only reaching back a couple of generations here when things have really made great leaps and bounds. Now, later on in life, she worked for the Obama administration, for the State Department, in making sure that in America they had much, much better accessibility rights, laws, and building codes. And then from that, once kind of America had things a little bit better in shape, she focused on the rest of the world in exporting these building requirements around the world so that people with disabilities in India or Sweden or South Africa or Argentina can still benefit from these much, much better laws. Now, this building I've attached at the back is the Judy Heumann School for Accessible Design. It is going to be a university level building. I'm still debating if it's going to be a part of the Tyler Moore East college system here in Martha's Point, or if it's going to be a satellite campus of the University of Sofia. That remains to be determined. We have to talk to the boards of education in each region first to see how they're going to divide those responsibilities. But there was this hidden staircase back here, which was a bit of a pain for me to get rid of. But using the customization mode, as you can see, each red dot that I select and move goes back, and I managed to hide that whole staircase without taking out that column or even the bottom of the column, so that it all looks just right. So it clearly is a modern addition to a historical building that still respects the style of the original architecture, yet has an accessible doorway. So we are going to continue this lovely paver in the back here. And I don't have to do this, but I really want to for this particular building, to make it as detailed as possible and really make it as wonderful as possible. This is a memorial to Judy Heumann, and she deserves the best. So I'm going to taper the corners of these decals so that it fits around the corner a bit better and looks a bit nicer. It's sort of like giving someone a present that you wrapped yourself, and the corners are, janky and all over the place, and it just looks bad. So I'm gonna wrap my present to Judy as best as I can and make the corners folded in nicely and neat and tucked in, so it just looks a little bit more finished and professional. Now, again, I'm doing this using the customization tool with the little nodes. It's really the best way to get such a detailed shape out of a piece in Procedural Objects. Really, the general tools are mostly just for resizing to make things bigger or smaller, but the customization tool is really where a lot of power in the tool lays, because there you can really manipulate things and take them to new levels. Of course, we're going to need some parking at this division, and of course it's going to be mostly, if not all, accessible parking, people who are able-bodied can park across the street and walk. That's really, it's reasonable to expect that, because this is a planning division where we're going to need consultations from people with mobility issues all day, every day. There's no reason why, if we have a group of 50 people in wheelchairs coming to a meeting at this building, we shouldn't be allowing able-bodied people to park right beside the door while those 50 people have to park elsewhere in the town and walk a couple blocks or roll a couple blocks over to the building. That's just not right. The accessible parking gets priority. And we're going to line it with a nice little fence to make it pretty, and we're planning on having some patio space back here. But your very expensive custom-made van that is wheelchair accessible, if it bumps into a wrought iron gate in front of it and needs repairs, it's going to cost a whole lot more than if your little smart card just bumped into a fence. So we are buffering it with a row of hedges where if anybody's mobile ends up going a little too far, it's not going to crash into something metal and scratch and bang everything up and ruin things. It's just going to be a bit of a padding. And the hedges can grow back. It's fine. They're city hedges. They're not going to be all that happy to begin with anyway. It's okay. But a bit of a bumper for your bumper. Now we've got some lovely sidewalk cafes out here, all with tables with removable seating, no picnic tables here, so that anybody can roll up to a table and a chair can be pulled away and everybody will be able to enjoy themselves on this patio. Now, of course, we're going to need some landscaping, and spring is coming, so I'm just really getting into cherry blossoms. I love the Sakura season. There are cherry blossom festivals all around me here in Toronto, and it really is lovely. It's still 2 months away, but I'm trying to cheer myself up with the winter blahs here. Me who loves winter has the winter blahs, so I can only imagine how the rest of you are feeling these days. Some lovely hazel trees on the patio area, on the terrace, but then something happened here, and this is something that happens to me frequently, and a great time for me to teach you how to use the picker tool in Move It. You're getting a lot of tutorials in this episode. You're welcome. So what you do is go into Move It, you click the Select Objects, that square button, and you select one thing, and it will then pick that and only that whenever you highlight an area. So it's not just going to take all the trees, it's not just going to take all the hazel trees, it's only going to take all of the street-sized hazel trees, the ones that just magically made its own line way off the screen. It's some sort of glitch, I don't know why. It's been doing that since September, since the Plazas and Promenades update. And I've seen other creators have this problem too, so I know it's not just me. Now we're going to finish up a bit of detailing on the patio here. Make sure we add in a few benches and bike racks, though not too many, because there won't be such a need here, but also accessible drinking fountains and waste receptacles. Of course, at nighttime, this dome needs to be lit up as well, so I'm adding some spotlights using Move It to put them right in just the place I want. And here I can raise and lower the lights to see the different effects they have as they move through different parts of the building. So I really have a lot of choice here of how I'm going to make this look. And I decide to light up the cupola at the top as well as the main dome itself, including the windowed area and the colonnade around the bottom. So it's not just the roof that looks like it's on fire. It's more the building that's being highlighted. Now, shortly after we finish detailing out this lot, I'm going to leave you with a city tour, and that will be the end of the video. So before we take off on the city tour, I will say my goodbyes. I really must thank you for joining me here. I I really can't express enough how much fun it is. It's more fun for me to make the videos these days than it is to actually play the game, because I find it a greater challenge, and even more tools for me to learn, more tools for me to manipulate, and more ways for me to customize things that I do. Obviously, as you can tell by watching these videos, I love to make things customized to my liking. Here are the trash receptacles. I've got some lovely lights around. It's just a lovely place, and surely to be seen from every angle of the city, so we do not forget how important accessibility and equity are in our city designs. I love more than anything else to use these videos as a good thing to help other people, whether that's because you don't get out much because of a lockdown or any other reason. Here you can connect with other people in a lovely place, but also to highlight lovely people from not so lovely places who've done wonderful things, like Judy Heumann, or Martha Mitchell, whom Martha's Point is named after, and you can hear all about that in the episode about Martha's Point. But it is important to me to honor the people who have done so much hard work to make this world a better place for all of us. I'm a member of a minority community within a minority community. I know what it's like to be left out of everything, and it's just wrong. It's really best when we can create spaces that include everyone. We're going to rename the square outside Judy Heumann Square as well, so that it is in the city fabric, in the street grid itself. Her name is embedded forever and will not be forgotten. She's a hero who should be honored for generations to come. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode here. I hope to see you soon. Take care, have fun with the rest of the Tyler Moore, and have a great city tour. Bye-bye.